our participant.
Yes,
Participants, we have with us the renowned academician, system builder, Professor G. Mohan Gopal, the former director of National Judicial Academy of Supreme Court, Bhopal, for the period of 2006 to 2011. Sir was the founder chair of National Court Management System Committee of the Supreme Court of India. Professor Gopal is former director, Vice-Chancellor of National Law University, Bangalore from 2000 to 2009. Sir has also been World Bank lawyer between 1986 to 2004. Sir has been a pillar of alternative thinking and critical understanding of Indian social system and political setup. Participants, let me observe that during research, including teaching, what we need to do, what way we need to think critically for the paradigm and how to get out of the contemporary, in a way I can say world over an Indian paradigm of research, so that we can reach to the real issues of research in social science and law and legal teaching. Sir, I welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So it's all yours, sir.
And can I just request a very brief self-introduction of all the participants so that I know who is
yes, sir.
going around the table?
Yes, sir. The participant, most of the participants are teachers, assistant professor. Two of participants are professors. Some of them are also research scholars. Majority is from law discipline, and some of them are there from sociology, pol science, even two participants from management studies. So this is the composition of participants. A total number of participants for this 2-week deliberation is 42.
Wonderful.
Yes. And the participants belong to around 20 states from India.
Very nice. 128 states.
Sorry, 20 states. 20. 20.
20. Okay. All but 8 states here.
So we had selected candidates from, we had applications from 28 states. So we had given representation to all states, but due to unfortunate circumstances, some of the participants from, because of some cyclone, others in other parts, they could not make it.
That's very nice. Congratulations. Glad to be with you. Everyone is looking very prim and serious. So something we are waiting to hear some bad news. I think we need to think, we need to be relaxed. And I can assure you that I am in no position to give you any bad news, all good news. I'm just a student of law, and those who need to be worried about anything, we need to have I'm here to basically to be able to think with you and together. And I'm actually here to learn from you. Also, that's it's through interaction that we all learn. So we have an hour and a half, almost to 3:30, and a topic which I suggested to Dr. Chancellor is really a question: what is missing in legal research in India? Because I look at I've had the opportunity to work and teach outside India for many years. I worked as a in the legal department of the World Bank in Washington DC for across 3 decades. I was chief counsel of the World Bank there. And while doing that for 9 years, I was teaching at the Georgetown University Law Center. I was teaching for 3 years, many years ago, before many of you were born, I think, at the National University of Singapore as in the Faculty of Law. And I've traveled to many countries, interacted with lawyers in many countries. We are today the most populous country on earth. I've been to Beijing University Law School, for example. very impressive, very powerful law school that is making enormous, sort of playing a very important role in shaping ideas about law globally. But I find that at the global level and at the national level, compared to when I was very young, legal thinking has become more and more marginalized and less powerful. I would say the last great jurist we have with us is Professor Bakshi. Who has contributed and created some unique ways of thinking about law in India. So when I look at all of you as young people, I have to start with a confession that my generation has failed, and I hope that I have no doubt that your generation will change that and be taken seriously as legal thinkers. Let's not forget that the freedom movement of this country, including Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, they were all, and most of all, the most powerful intellect that has completely shaped the modern India is Baba Sahib Ambedkar. And they were all people who were experts in law, constitutional law, if not lawyers themselves. Dr. Ambedkar, all of them were lawyers. And so there was a time when lawyers were leading thinking in the country. I'm not making a tribal point that lawyers should lead, but I'll come to why that is so important for lawyers to have a key role in shaping the country shortly. And so I feel that ultimately I've been back full time and only deeply meditatively in India for now over 2 decades, working in legal education, judicial education. Only I've now started in the last 1 year or so appearing in the Supreme Court pro bono without even taking fees for expenses for marginalized sections. And those who don't have, can't afford to get senior counsel to argue for them in the Supreme Court, and a few cases in my Kerala High Court also, where I'm now speaking from in Kerala. And I'm not speaking, High Court is in Kochi, I live in Trivandrum, which is the capital of Kerala. And so I've also started to see the system from the point of view simply of an appellate lawyer. I don't deal with clients, I only deal with lawyers who want me to argue their cases. So I don't get involved in filing and all that. I have no office, I have no assistants, I have no research assistants, I do everything myself. I have no domestic help, I have no driver, I do everything myself. And so my interventions are only at the arguing level. So I'm finding that our role as our contribution to the building up of our country as lawyers has become secondary now. Others are shaping the country, and lawyers are simply providing the legal justification and the legal steps necessary to implement that. And that is unfortunate for reasons that I'll explain. So let me begin by requesting all of you to tell me first and tell each other what you think after several days of discussion. You are now coming to the last, including today, Dr. Chancellor, the last 3 days
yes, sir.
Of this exercise.
CCPL, yes, sir. The CCPL will conclude on 23rd, day after tomorrow.
Yeah, so today, tomorrow, and day after tomorrow, the last 3 days. So you've been through this many very good sessions in the seminar. What do you think are the what do you think is missing in Indian legal research from your point? Let's have a round of discussion, and then I will come back with my own views and then take it forward.
Honest.
Everyone is still looking anxious. Nothing to be anxious about, So we're just having an informal conversation. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Maybe it's cold weather making you anxious, and I'm sitting in very warm tropical weather, so I'm feeling very cheerful.
Good evening, sir. This is Dr. Mrityunjay from HPW Shimla. I'm working here as assistant professor.
Yes.
What we find in our discussion, we have tried to understand that in Indian legal system, most of our research are very much analytical in nature, but we don't want to see that the plight of poor people who are not able to access justice. So, so most of our research are very objectified, commodified, and scholars are just using knowledge, but selling knowledge in the market, but they are not helping people to get justice. So that's the major concern for research in lacking research in the legal system.
Yes, very important point. Very important. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir,
Good afternoon.
I am Renuka, PhD scholar at HPLU Shimla. Sir, in my opinion, firstly, I totally agree with Mrityunjay, sir, what he said. Sir, in my opinion, two things are missing. First is the action research aspect, and second is the scientific analysis of qualitative methods, like qualitative data. So these two things are missing.
What was the first, ma'am? First one?
So scientific and more systematic analysis of qualitative data.
Yeah, that's the second point. The first one?
So first one is, I think that action research aspect is missing.
Action research.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain that a little bit? Action research, just for me to understand it clearly.
Sir, for example, we focus very much on the analytical part, on the descriptive part of legal materials. And qualitative data, but when we see that what is the utilitarian aspect of our research, so that thing is very much missing in, especially in the legal research.
What aspect is missing?
Sir, utilitarian aspect.
Descriptive, it's descriptive.
Sir, descriptive research is there, analytical research is also there. What is missing is the utilitarian aspect, or what we are doing.
Yes, utilitarian, yes. Very good, yeah, very good, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, very helpful. Yes, sir.
Hello, sir, this is Arshia.
Yes, ma'am.
I am an assistant lecturer at OPGental Global University. What I have realized in 3 years of my teaching in India is that we do PhD or, PhD itself. We do it for degree. I'm not talking about most, I'm talking about the most scholars, but not all. There are a few scholars who are very good, who are centered on, focused on what they really want to do and add to the society. They want to give back to the society, but mostly all of them are centered on having that qualifier to enter the academia or to reach certain stage in academia, rather than rather than motivating themselves or dedicating themselves to the research itself.
Yes, so its research is very career oriented rather than knowledge oriented or society oriented. Yeah, it's oriented towards society.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's also a very good point. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So according to me, and whatever I will say, all the blame I will take on myself. I consider that our Indian legal academia, one major problem which I see from my own discipline, that is international laws perspective, is that my subject is entirely ignored in Indian legal academia. Number one. Number two, generally in legal academia, I have seen that the focus of all conferences, FDPs, and even research journal calls and guest talks are overwhelmingly focused on materialistic idea of sustainable development goals. This is what I have been observing since last 2 years, which is a problem. Like for example, focusing too much on ESG and transferring public goods to a private sector or a corporate sector is not a very wise idea. And thinking and locating research around those ideas would definitely lead India into a materialistic fiasco, for which Indian society and culture is not made. This is my second observation, sir. My third observation.
Too much shifting towards private sector production and therefore materialism and consumption and all that. Is that your concern?
Yes, sir. Point number 3, the funding and research support by various research organizations to research scholars is skewed and is full of skepticism. I partly believe that skepticism is right, because Indian legal academia don't want to write. It can think, it can ponder upon, but will not want to write. And again, I'm saying all that blame, I take it on to myself. That is what is my personal observation. Point number 3.
Is it skeptical about writing, or the writing is skeptical?
No, sir. The funding agencies are skeptical about that the researchers are not doing serious works. And I would like to concur with them that they are right partly because Indian legal academia don't want to write much. They are good thinkers, they are good speakers, they are good orators. They don't write much, including me. That's another. And next observation about India's legal research is that we are more receptive rather than doing some original thinking. We have forgotten our golden past, and we are focusing more on Western scholars, whom especially in this FDP, I've realized that a lot of what Western scholars have been talking about, even in critical schools, were partly dealt with by our ancient writers. Like, for example, Shankaracharya or Nagarjuna have already talked about a lot of what I have read in Western philosophy, or which I call critical legal studies. When I say critical legal studies, I go apart from. I go to the developments from Frankfurt School, like for example works of David Kennedy, Professor Chinmay, Marty Koskenemi, Anne Orford, and so on. So I'm talking about these scholars, that whatever they have come up with, like for example, they are talking more about how logic of capital is not being taken care of in international legal academia, even in critical part of the international legal academia has not done well for global south countries. Part of such anecdotal examples are already seen in the writings of Shankaracharya and Nagarjuna, without them being quoted anywhere. That is another area of concern which I have come across. And another area of concern which I come across, it's not just India's problem. I think it's a global phenomenon of too much mainstreaming of legal academia. That we believe this is how the law is done in most of the law schools most of the time. I mean, I'm quoting Louis Henkin here. This is how law is taught most of the time in most of the law schools, and in most of the curriculums. When I say this, it is too much authoritative notions of law, which leads to too much formalism of law, and you focus more on formalism rather than actual thinking of law. So what we are actually doing is we are doing law but not thinking about law. That is another area of concern which I have been pondering upon in last 10 days here. And lastly, I would conclude is that there is too much elitism in India's legal academia, where young scholars don't get too much exposure of better faculties and better professors like yourself, sir. I'm not talking you. I'm not telling you as elitist, but I'm talking generally about India's legal academy of being elitist, and it's a blame I am seriously taking the responsibility of. Thank you, sir.
Would you say it's hierarchical also?
It's too much hierarchical, and there's too much gatekeeperism as well.
Too much?
Gatekeeperism as well.
Gatekeeperism, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
We are also
Next. Sir.
Oh, excellent.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So I am Tilaganandan from Calicut.
Yes.
Sir, I agree with Dr. Mrityunjay and the other two speakers who mentioned about.
This is Professor Tilaganandan.
Yes, sir.
Oh, very nice to meet you. You're an old,
Thank you, sir. Glad to meet you.
you're an old friend. He's a very senior academician, an excellent and much respected academician. Was principal of the Government Law College, which I visited when he was principal, and an outstanding head of the institution. And now working in a private education institution after retirement.
So,
It's
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
real honor to see you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'm really honored. Sir, I agree with Dr. Mrityunjay and the other two speakers. And as they said, the research in modern times is more career oriented, and researchers are interested in doctrinal research. And I think more empirical studies are required to unearth the problems of the society. This is what I would like to say.
Yes. Very good, sir. Very good. Excellent.
So, good afternoon, Professor. I am Dr. Dilsha
Yes.
Sheikh from Chennai.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Honor to have you also.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor. Professor, in my understanding,
I cannot see you. I cannot
Okay.
see you.
Yeah.
So I put it. Yes, I can see you now.
Yes, Professor.
I'm a senior, experienced person like you also.
Yeah.
Nice to
Yes,
have you
Professor.
here.
Yes. Thank you, Professor. And yeah.
Yes.
Professor, in my understanding, if Indian legal research
Yes.
is happening as a solution oriented, that will really serve the purpose, because a lot of time quantify in hours, years or months. Much of these scholars are doing a great research in the field. But the point is, my reservation is regarding conclusions and suggestions, wherein after the research, either it may be empirical or descriptive, conclusions have been drawn basing upon the research outcome. But at the end of the day, while making out the suggestions, which can be like shown as a solution for the research problem, that has not been taken care except like implementation challenges, nothing much has been observed by the researchers, and at the end of the day, no viable model is coming out. So to me, whatever time that has been spent by the researcher over the problem has ended up by suggesting or identifying the problem, but not like when we talk about startup companies, we mobilize the resources and we will give the plan like how the action need to be done. And India is really working very great in that field. If our research has been channelized towards giving a constructive suggestion, rather a viable suggestion, most of the problems that are identified by the researchers will come up with a utilitarianism, wherein the solution-based research will be much appreciated. Thank you, Professor.
Very important point. Yes. Thank you.
Yes, next please. Who is next? Dr. Sukanya, you want to say something?
All the comments are in. Any more comments? No?
This is Sukanya, and so I am from
Yes, yes.
Let the visibility come first. This is Sukanya, and I am from sociology. I am not from the legal background. So since it was a workshop capability program on social sciences, I was interested in checking what is the integration between social sciences and the legal aspects, because we also teach society and law and a lot of related subjects.
Yes.
So I was interested in that part. Initially, I am sorry again. Initially, when I started taking this session, I found that there are a lot of taken quote unquote blame that researchers are doing the copy paste job. If most of the researchers are doing that, then there is a flaw in our selection program. So we are selecting the poor researcher. But I am not ready to accept this, that we are doing only the copy paste thing. Later on, this session came to idealizing a lot of on the theoretical aspect, which I enjoyed a lot, and of course. Rather than learning, I would say I am taking a lot of things together, and probably I need more time to percolate all these thinkings into my understanding. But it is indeed an enriching program. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You said idealizing what, ma'am? The second part, you said you found that there was idealization of what?
Sorry?
You said there was that you found that there was an idealization. Really,
Theories.
there was this internal criticism.
Theoretical. later on this, the curricula also, initially it was more on the practical aspect of the research, that is
Yes.
quantitative research and as well the tools of the research, and later on the program is focusing on the idealization, the theoretical aspects of the social science research. Yes.
Conceptual aspects of
Yes,
it.
conceptual aspects.
You're using it in a Hegelian way, idealization. Yes.
Yes.
Good afternoon,
Yes.
sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you, ma'am. That's very interesting. Thank you.
Very good afternoon, sir.
I
This
should
is
realize that the sociologist always is observing, everything we do. So, so it's wonderful to have an observer in the room also, in addition to being a participant. Trained observer. Yeah. Yes.
yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir. This is Ayush from
Yes.
NLSIU Shimla, sir. What, in my opinion, and again, to carry forward everybody's argument here, and more specifically Sudhir's argument, again, the blame is on me specifically. One of the major points with respect to legal research and research in general is that the systemic issues which are there, they are neither being realized and not being explored, because there is no realization, so there is no exploration. So we are moving from the vantage point that everything is fine.
Yes.
Second point, more importantly, is, and this is again in context of the Indian research scenario, that the institutionalization of research and researchers, both institutionalization of research and researchers, it has actually sidelined altogether the essence of research. And to add to this further, in the Indian scenario, the entire approach has also been mechanized towards a goal which in India was never even explored as to whether that goal is to be achieved or not. So there is no realization with respect to how it is being done, the systemic issues, and the fact that there is a certain goal which has been presented and India is mechanistically trying to achieve it. Now, another important consideration which can also be further highlighted in this web.
May I ask what that goal is? What that goal is that is sought to be achieved?
So one of the goals which can be very easily discerned both from the legal system is the idea of achieving an economic desired goal. Again, this is coming not from me. There are two major authors who have written about this. One is Joseph Minator and the second is William Dalrymple. Both of them have historically explored the dimensions of the Indian legal system and how it is a legal system which was primarily based on profit maximization. So a goal has been given, profit, and we are somewhat, carrying forward with that burden itself. So that is where I said the systemic issues have been not realized nor explored. And
Yes.
on top of that, in this scenario, what is happening is that one, India is not checking upon that goal. Second, India is also losing its pluralistic and diffused nature of the social knit society.
Yes.
So there are multiple levels and layers in which the research has been affected negatively, and at the
Yes.
same time, we have to address these concerns to maybe find a solution. Okay.
Yes.
And again, I too am a culprit in this entire scenario. Not saying I am ideal or something, but yeah, we too have our efforts in that. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
That's really wonderful. Another excellent set of comments. Really, yeah. Very insightful.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Angel Yadav, PhD scholar at HPNLU. So, sir, my
Yes.
observation is researchers are taking those topics which are very common in society, and we should take those topics in research area that are not much common, or that are we should take modern problem and work on that problem.
Okay, what you're suggesting is that the topics are not being properly selected or need to be, what's missing, we're asking what's missing, so you're saying that a sort of good topics are missing
Right,
in
sir.
research.
Good topic are missing, or like we are not focusing on the modern problems which are the law is lacking those problems, but we are just researching on those topics which are very common in the society.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were looking at really, looking at problems which are well known. We're not looking at newer, and we're not looking at the problems that are, there are a lot of problems that are missing from our research.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's my point.
A lot of topics that are missing, yeah. Very good.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent.
Ma'am, please come this side. So will be the lens, frame of the lens. Yeah. Yes, sir. Please.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir. This is Anukruti Sharma. I have recently started as research officer in Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. With the limited experience I have had, I think that there is too much influx of information these days. There's plethora of information, and I think the direct impact of that is on the biasness. So I feel that it is very important when you are out there researching, specifically when you undertake any kind of action research or action research or something that is very societal oriented. It is very important to keep biasness checked. So I feel that that is something that is clearly lacking, and one of the most important factors behind that is because we are motivated by a lot of incentives that are not particularly research oriented but career oriented. So there's always this race against time also, that we have to achieve this, we have to achieve that, and thereby we end up compromising on a lot of research ethics. So I believe that it is very important for that to be checked, because even I sometimes feel that constantly I am checking myself that it shouldn't be the case that I have read something very little about a topic and then I proclaim myself to be a master of that topic with the limited knowledge set that I have, and I start propagating about that particular topic as if I know it all. So I believe that these are the kind of situations that need to be checked at the first place before starting out as a researcher in itself. Yeah,
Right.
that is
So I think that's a very, very important point, that the incentive structure is much more quantitative than qualitative, and so it's kind of just get publications out, and I'm seeing a lot of people publishing, looking for easy to publish platforms and publications, and many publications have actually emerged that that cater to this need, and we'll give you all the benchmarks that publish really some very, very, very poor quality papers. I think it should be contrasted with the fact that a person who's considered one of the most influential Western philosophers of the 20th century, Wittgenstein. Um, he published only one book in his entire life, and that was about 75 pages. And that was basically his PhD thesis. And now there are, of course, dozens and dozens of books written based on his papers and notes and all that. But he himself published only one book. And so it's not the quantity that matters, it's really the quality that matters. I think that's how I understand. So the incentives are actually not allowing you to pursue. If Wittgenstein would not have made it past assistant professor in India if he had got selection at all. His PhD supervisor was Bertrand Russell, And when he wrote this thesis in philosophy, and he was called for his examination. And when he went into his examination, he told Bertrand Russell, "I don't think you'll be able to understand what I've written." That's the confidence, and here it would have been considered arrogant to tell Bertrand Russell that I don't think you'll understand my thesis, you're not smart enough for that, and get away with it. So anyway, so I agree with you that it should be qualitative. Yeah, sorry, let's move on to the round of discussions if there's anyone else left.
Sir,
Okay.
can I complete 2-3 points?
Yeah. Sorry?
I have 2-3 points.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Nowadays, what I've seen, and I do not, it's not about liking, I do not agree with these things.
I must say, Dr. Sanchez is another person I have a lot of,
yes.
Of regard and affection for, so I'm very happy to be here. Yes, with you.
Sir, what happens that even my students, LLM and others, we take the categories of law for granted. We are not challenging. It has to be challenged. Let me give one example. Recently, Odisha government did something regarding land rights. Most of you must have read it. Land rights of tribal people. Now, has any researcher thought of that? Can these things be taken up? Because it's an old question, but it continues today. It's about allocation of natural rights, but its legal categories are there in the statutory laws, which are again getting stronger. Have we tried to look into to whose favor, to whose disadvantage the laws might work and is working? We are not challenging it. I think the first virtue any researcher, and sir, I had taken a session in a historical sense, how to do research. I had tried to exhibit that. No one is challenging. So that's the great problem. Not only the on the ground, that is how it operates, but also in the categories. When I say category, it's the meta concepts, practical concept which is there in our law. So, second point, there are certain issues which attracts for attention of lawyers, researchers, even courts, and they may be related to minority, but it has a huge romantic or political or emotional appeal. But there are many issues which may be more grave. So it's a matter of reading in a programmatic manner. I'm using programmatic manner. The very foundational document. So the problem is not with the document, problem is with the reading or the reader. So that reader or reading must be the target of our research. So that is missing, sir. Thank you, sir.
Very important comment. What exactly do you mean by category? You said we are not, we take the categories for granted.
I use, sir, as a, so for example, what constitutes forest? For example,
Okay.
what constitutes property as a legal category?
Okay.
What constitutes a land? Because land cannot have the same meaning at all levels or at places.
Right.
And all for all people also, or people of all classes. So because I have a different use for this land, he belongs to what we call a far-flung corner of mountain, where the roads are not there, the schools are not there, but he has a different meaning for that land.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, very good.
Good afternoon, sir. This side, Dr. Vinay Sharma, and I am from political science. So it is a great pleasure for me also to be a part of this HPNLU CBP program. So I would like to especially give thanks to Chancellor sir, to Mrityunjay sir and Ayush sir for organizing this event. And I found so much negativity while so many people were giving suggestions about the legal research. So what I've observed that whenever we majorly focus on any philosopher or any writer, we do focus on their guides, or we can say that their teachers.
So we cannot blame one-sided that the students are only responsible for a very bad research. Like this is a program where we are learning. So when we are getting time, we are like excluding our time and we are investing time here in learning CBP program. So when you're talking about the legal research, if you are not ready to change the legal laws, which is forcing and pressurizing students to meet the requirements of the research within few minutes, few days, few hours, it's really difficult for any student to learn. So if anyone is saying that research is lacking somewhere, the students are not working, maybe the teachers are not somewhere guiding students properly, so the gap is there. And that's why I would like to request everyone once again that every time we need some guidance and proper guidance which can help us to learn properly so that we can also proceed further. So this is what my suggestion is. So thank you very much for organizing this event. Thank you. And thank you, sir, because I saw you are from political science, so it was really good to have that connection once again. Thank you very much.
Any other participant, please?
If you are addressing me as being from political science, I don't have a political science background. I'm very interested in reading about philosophy and political science. My bachelor's degree was in science,
okay, sir.
biology.
Okay.
And then that was in Kerala, and then I did my LLB in Delhi University. And I'll speak a little bit about that. And then I did my JD in Harvard Law School. So I'm only purely trained in law. I'm unfortunately no degree in social sciences, but I'm an ardent student of social sciences. Yeah.
Anyone else, please? Okay, sir. We have our comments, sir.
Okay, wonderful. It's been a very enriching round of discussion. We've taken, I think, about nearly 40 minutes of this discussion, but it's been extremely valuable because this is, I think, the most valuable way of doing things, where we talk to each other and have a conversation about these issues rather than have a lecture. And so I think, and I've learned a lot. I've taken notes copiously, and I've learned a lot from all of you. So let me thank you for excellent comments and excellent discussion. And let me just say that, let's look at the word research. It means kind of searching again, right? Research means searching again, which means we are searching for something, right? So we have to be clear what are we searching for. We can't get up in the morning in my house and say, I'm going to search, and I'm going to research, but without knowing what I'm searching for. And so there needs to be clarity about what we are searching for in doing research. So in a sense, if there's one sentence about research I want to say, it is that we must have clarity about, when someone asks, what are you searching for? And it cannot be simply to publish, because that's not searching, it's actually developing an output, producing an output that you need, like a publication. Because you need 6 publications, you want 6 outputs. You're not searching for anything. You're trying to create, something that is mandated for you. Now, if you want to search for something as a lawyer, searching for something as a doctor, it may be you're searching for a therapy. For someone has come to you with a set of afflictions, human being, and you are searching for a diagnosis and a therapy, right? And you may look in established diagnoses and therapies. You cannot find anything. You will say, okay, can I figure out a new way? Like when we saw the initial COVID virus, we felt this is it is certainly a COVID virus, but new kind of COVID virus, so it's COVID-19. And so we have to diagnose it, and we have to develop theories, and so we are searching for identifying this virus and searching for an antivirus vaccine. So what I find is that the most difficult challenge is to be clear about what we're looking for. So that's one point. The second point I want to make, we have about 45 minutes, I think, which is good, and half an hour between what I say and what you say, and hopefully I'll finish before the 45 minutes so we can have another discussion. I want to start so this is just a general comment, and the reactions you gave me I put in two baskets. One is internal problems within the legal system of how research is organized, guided, its content, its structure, its incentives, its methodologies, its hierarchies, and all these internal aspects within the legal academy. And the second is on terms of what should we be searching for? What should we be searching for externally? And so these are the sort of two broad areas where we can see there are big problems in both of these. So I hope, frankly, I hope that one of you will write up your own comments here into a small little note, because it will be very useful, because you're, a large number of researchers, law teachers, law researchers gathered from different parts of the country. It would be very useful for you to document what you just discussed in the last 40-45 minutes, both internal and external challenges, because it would be very rare to have such a wide input. And so I think that's that's very, there's internal and external challenges, and also challenges about lack of impact, lack of there's a log frame for input, output, outcome, and impact. So you're looking at outcomes and impacts are not as clear of the work we do in legal research. So that's how we see this thing as and you've given a lot of detail. I'm not going to repeat it in terms of both internal problems and problems of identifying solution. This is one aspect of an internal problem is lack of guidance on legal research. But fundamentally, I think we are searching. We don't have adequate clarity about what legal research is compared to what medical research is, what scientific research is. I have an old classmate of mine who is sort of career research scientist now working in Australia and in chemistry, and they have very clear research goals. We want to search on whether this chemical has these properties or not, or what are the properties that these chemicals have. They formulate very clear questions for which they need to search for answers, and that clarity, I think, is and it has to be something that's not known, rather than something as Madam said at the end, rather than take up established problems to which we already know we don't know, or we know the answers, and then work around it. But in terms of what's missing, I'd like to start with a story. That this is the 50th anniversary of my entering first year LLB. I did my LLB from 73 to 76. So 50 years ago, I started the study of law, and I've been only focusing on law for this half a century. Whatever I do, I focus centrally in law and look at that from my legal discipline. Now, when we studied from 73 to 76, my classmates included Arun Jaitley, Raju Ramachandran, Rupinder Singh Suri, Ranjit Dua, many, Pavan Varma, or many of these people, and I won't go on rattling these names, but they were all very, very wonderful people and good friends, and we started our LLB a few months after Keshwan and Bharati. While we were in the first year, there was and it was just after the Bangladesh war in '71 end, and a very historical time. And in the first few months when we were in law school, we had Royapa, we had a number of important decisions, and then we saw a a big confrontation emerging between political confrontation in the country between the then government and then right-wing forces that were fighting the government. As we now know, many right-wing forces were mobilizing against the government, mass agitation. There was also, following the war, a big economic crisis, unemployment, a lot of distress. So student agitations, youth agitations in Bihar, Gujarat, and so on. So tumultuous time. And leading through all that, it was when we were law students and the emergency was declared in June 1975. And when we completed our LLB, the emergency was still on. And it was lifted in 77, only after we completed law school. So when we graduated, it was during emergency. And so during emergency, top political leaders were arrested, put in jail. Arun Jaitley, who was in our class, not from the class, but he was demonstrating outside in the Chowraha nearby. He was arrested and put in jail for 19 months. So one of our own classmates was lost to jail. And the Constitution, we had the 42nd Amendment to the Constitution on top of the emergency. So the Constitution was really being shaken up, and yet none of this ever came into our classroom or our research. None of this. We used to come in a state of emergency into the classroom. We would sit down, and some of the best professors in the country, Professor P.K. Tripathi, Professor D.K. Singh, Professor Madhav Menon, who was then a young reader, Professor Bakshi, Professor Latika Sarkar, I didn't directly study in their class, but the others I did. Once we walked into that classroom, we discussed, 1950s judgments, 1960s judgments, 1970s judgments, Privy Council legal history, Diwani Adalat, and all these Diwani Adalat and all this legal history and oral history and British history, legal history and all that. But we never, as part of our curriculum, our education, we never addressed the huge crisis going on in our country. Now, when I speak in law schools now, I tell them that I know that we are now in the same situation as we were between 73 and 76, in a different way. A massive assault is being made against our constitution to overthrow it, everything fundamentally to it. It is not entering the legal academy again. I can tell you 50 years from now, in 2073, your students will sit like me and say that back in 2023, when the Indian Republic, socialist, secular, democratic republic, was overthrown and replaced by a theocracy, it never came into our classroom. Our teachers never talked about it. We kept on studying Keshwananda Bharati, we kept on studying, Alien Jabalpur, and we kept on studying all these old decisions which took place when I was young, which we never studied when we were young. We were studying what was 50 years old, and they are now studying what's 50 years old. Now the challenge faced by my teachers then and the challenge faced by you now is, how do we do this? What's the methodology? This is a real methodology question. And what is the question we need to search for? What to do research? What is a research question for us? And it's actually a fantastic opportunity. Because for the first time after 73 to 76, fundamental questions are being raised about the Constitution of India. The questions that were raised first in the Constituent Assembly, then during the emergency, and now. And we have to ask ourselves, what is the nature of this republic? So we had this Article 370 judgment, for example. We have to discuss it in the classroom. I personally believe it is entirely wrong judgment, wrong in law. You were teaching international law. One of the interveners was said, if I understood you correctly, sir, you're teaching international law?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what the international law question is on Kashmir?
Sir, it revolves around the notions of recognition, the traditional notions of recognition, along with the notions of sovereignty and certain other questions about internal security, which may be and may not be read in line with mainstream. And there are a lot other critical questions with respect to Kashmir about whether it is wrongfully or correctly the part of India, and the notions of secession have to be argued vis-a-vis Kashmir. And surprisingly, the problems of Kashmir are similar to a lot of problematic territories across the world.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was a good point, but what I had in mind was the narrow question is, how does a nation deal with a disputed territory in international law? What is a disputed territory? When two nations claim that a territory is theirs, it becomes a disputed territory. And to avoid war, there is an international law framework that you can only deal with that solution through international law mechanisms, because two nations are claiming a territory as their own. And that's a dispute, and any nation claims another nation's territory as ours, that territory becomes a disputed territory. Then to ensure that these nations do not go to war, international law says we will decide through international law the merits of this claim, because both are sovereign states. And meanwhile, neither state should take any unilateral action. Now, for example, this aspect is not adverted to in the judgment at all. So sovereignty is discussed, but I don't know, why they. So India has taken a step unilaterally to change the constitutional status of a country, and the question is that consistent with the international law on dealing with disputed territory, for example? Mr. Fali Nariman has, in a few interviews, raised some very important constitutional questions. Quite apart from Kashmir and all the secessionism, and the secessionism, to my mind, is not the issue, because secessionism is a kind of a violent arm, breaking off from a country. But international law tries to prevent that by providing a constitutional, peaceful mechanism for resolving such disputes without going to violence or war between nations. And so, so we need to consider these questions. I don't want to divert into a discussion on that judgment. I'm simply saying we have issues on secularism, we have issues on socialism, right? We have issues on federalism. So Mr. Fali Nariman said that it was never envisaged in the constitution that a state will be changed into a union territory. Size can be given, but a state cannot be changed into a union territory, and he argues that it's because a union territory does not have, it's not mandatory for a union territory to have a legislature, but a state has to have a legislature. So when you change a state for a legislature, you are taking away from the people their right to be represented in a legislature. So federalism is involved, democracy is involved, so many issues are involved. Now one may take one view or another view. I'm not saying which view is right or wrong. In my own view, the government missed some of these issues in law and did not address some of the issues correctly, but others were, the government was correct. Obviously, this field was unanimous that they were correct. I argued EWS case against EWS, of changing the topic. But how many constitutional law classrooms are teaching EWS today? I opened and closed the arguments on behalf of those who challenged EWS. I was very pleasantly surprised. We thought we use a cricket term, a whitewash, a 5-0, because we had 5 judges, but we got two dissents agreeing with us. And it was a very narrow majority, which means the Chief Justice of India struck down EWS as being unconstitutional. He happened to be in a majority, but he struck it down as unconstitutional. It's not a small thing. So, why? So, going deeper than this, we have to ask ourselves, what is going on in our country? That the Constitution has become a central political, not the working of the Constitution, but the character of the Constitution has become a central political issue. Is it because we have not explained the Constitution as lawyer well enough? We have not understood the comment that was made that we are not understanding, realizing. I noted down the word you used. We are not realizing the systemic issues, right, or the systems accurately. We are not understanding the systems accurately and communicating to people on what the constitutions and what the constitutional issues are. And I do a lot of work on this. I do a lot of work on discussing the constitution with people. And then we come to that going one step further back to discussing what is the nature of law, what is law, what is the nature of law, what is justice. On what is justice, I have one more session with you on researching the judicial system, and I discuss justice there and not here. But understanding from the jurisprudential point of view, what is law? What are we concerned about as lawyers? My mother was a doctor. She's obviously she's passed away, but she was a doctor. And when I was very young, and she would leave me to go to her work, I knew what she was going to do, which was to make people who didn't feel unwell get better. Simple thing. If your children ask you, what do you do as lawyers, as law teachers, as judges, what answer would you give? Just one answer from any of you. If your little 5-year-old daughter asks you, Mama or Papa, what do you do? What would you say?
Sir, I used to tell my cousin, he is 6, that I am saving innocent people.
You are?
Saving innocent people from prison.
That's actually a good answer. But if you were in the police, you could also give the same answer.
Yes, sir.
So how would you distinguish yourself from a police officer?
Sir, in many ways, like he is only 5, 6.
In a way that you're not talking to me as your 5-year-old child. So explain it to me that way.
Actually, sir, what he thinks is that police is rude or harsh, and lawyers, the work of lawyer is just saving people from the police and from the prison. So that's the thinking of the child.
Yes, yes. So yeah, so that's certainly a good answer, but I would, we can go one level sort of deeper and say there are probably 2 or 3 ways to understand the role of law, and just we briefly touch on justice here, but talk a little more later. And from my point of view, I'm not saying this is a definitive view, but as I see it, ultimately the central question that the law is concerned about is to determine whether human conduct is right or wrong. It's a very complex question. It's the most fundamental question in society. The police have only the responsibility to ensure that those who do wrong are held to account. But it's not their job to determine what conduct is right and what conduct is wrong. From the point of view of the state, the Indian state doesn't mean provincial state or government, it means the polity of the country. Everyone from individual to family to parents to all common people, religious groups, social groups, everyone has their view on what is right or wrong conduct. That's one of the most fundamental pillars on which any group is built. So when I always use this example when I talk to legal lawyers, law students, judges, take the wonderful way in which Sikhs greet each other. Sat Shri Akal, right? Such a beautiful greeting, reminding yourself constantly that truth is eternal, truth is God, truth is eternal. So that's a signal that, look, be truthful. Constantly reminding ourselves and each other that we must be truthful. When Muslims greet each other and say Salam Alaikum, right? They are saying, be peaceful to each other. Let's treat each other peacefully as brothers, sisters, fraternity. When we say Namaste, we are actually bowing to each other and saying, look, I bow to you. That's why in our hierarchical society, not everyone says Namaste to each other. We say Namaste to superior people in a much more ardent manner than they say to us from the heart. But even in the small ways in which people greet each other, the Christians say praise the Lord. So in 3 words they are saying let's honor the values of Jesus Christ, and so on and so forth. The examples are umpteen. But we are always signaling to each other as human beings, look, this is what I think is right conduct, so that we will not violate those terms of conduct. People will know what we consider right or wrong conduct. From this, the state identifies what it considers to be the right and wrong conduct from time to time, and I will explain more in the next session. But justice is, according to my research, justice is a standard of human conduct. Justice is a standard of human conduct. So they express it as justice. The state, that's why to secure justice, social, economic, and political is the first objective of the republic, means to secure the right conduct. So if we say that the main function of the legal system is which conduct is right or wrong, and if it's wrong, is it actionable, is there a consequence, that's the main function of the legal system. And when lawyers argue, they say a particular conduct alleged to have happened, let's say assume it's proved, one will say it is right, and the other say it is wrong, and the judge will then apply the standard of justice, which is the normative standard of conduct, and determine whether the conduct is consistent with the approved standard of conduct or not. So the uniqueness of our discipline is that we are concerned with perhaps one of the most foundational questions of society, namely what constitutes right and wrong human conduct. So I would submit that all our research must directly or indirectly exploring that idea to determine whether we got it right or we got it wrong. Because if we get it wrong, then we are in trouble. Like slavery in the United States was a wrong standard of human conduct, that one human being can treat another human being as a slave. Untouchability is a wrong standard of human conduct, that one human being can treat another human being as an untouchable, or in Professor Tilakanandan's and my state, there are some people who saw other human beings as unseeable. That's wrong human conduct. But there was a time when the prevailing legal system saw it as right and enforced slavery and untouchability. Today we have changed our sense, our morality. Morality consists of principles of right and wrong conduct. The legal system is a system of ethics, systems and institutions that determine and apply moral standards. Not all moral standards, as we know, are legal standards, but all legal standards are basically moral standards. Now the question, another question to search for is, what should guide the determination of what is right and what is wrong conduct? And there are two broad options. One is to look at it purely ethically, or normatively, and we could say deontologically, namely as an end in itself. So, for example, liberty, equality, fraternity, dignity are deontological values. They are not utilitarian. Regardless of the consequences, we have to, because of the mere humanity of human beings, we have to ensure that every human being is treated with equality, dignity, fraternity, and is assured his liberty. Another view is to take a utilitarian view, that what is right conduct is what is efficient, what is effective, from various measures, economic, political, social, to achieve various economic, social, and political objectives. And for a large and diverse country such as ours, the Constitution of India is a very complex and diverse document that sets out a variety of normative principles as right conduct, to ensure that we are able to live in peace with each other as a very diverse and pluralistic country, so that we will not kill each other again as we did once upon a time in 1947. So I think my own submission is that what is missing, in addition to everything you identified, I agree with all the points you identified, but what is missing from our legal research is a struggle to establish, strengthen, secure the vision of our Constitution as a secular, democratic, socialist republic. Each of these words very meaningful, very meaningful. And this was unanimously crafted by a very diverse constituent assembly, knowing that this is the only framework that will keep India together. In part 3, it will, to some extent, redistributed political power by giving equal rights to every citizen. There was a redistribution of political power there. No charter in the subcontinent in its history had ever given equal rights to everyone, regardless of gender, caste, religion, region. So that was a redistribution of political power that has unsettled the powerful. But the Constitution stopped short of redistributing social and economic power and put that in the directive principles of state policy. Now, some judicial decisions have brought some social aspects and economic aspects by interpretation into Article 21, but many still remain as non-judiciable directive principles of state policy. But we know that unless Part 3 and Part 4 as a whole are realized for the common people of this country, we will not stay together as a country. Because India is whether the Supreme Court sees it or not, India is a union of states. Each state in our country has is huge, has its own history, and is bigger than and more complex than most nations in the world. And so I just see, for example, India, the top most populous states of India includes the 10 most populous states in India have a population exceeding 1 billion. And I just tell you what countries have similar populations. UP has the population of Pakistan. Bihar has the population of Mexico. West Bengal has the population of Egypt. Maharashtra has the population of Mexico. Rajasthan has the population of Germany. Madhya Pradesh has the population of Turkey. Tamil Nadu has the population of France and Belgium combined. Andhra Pradesh, divided Andhra Pradesh, has the population of Spain and Norway combined. Karnataka has the population of United Kingdom. Gujarat has the population of Sweden and Italy combined. So imagine a country within which there is Germany, Pakistan, Italy, Sweden, Turkey, Mexico, UK, Spain, Norway, France, Belgium, Egypt and Mexico. And the rest of India, excluding these top 10 states, has the combined population of United States and Russia. Now, do you think a country like this can be managed as a unitary state based on one religion, one idea of a nation? Anything but federal? With huge autonomy and freedom for states, because actually the diversity in India is more than the diversity of these European countries I just named. I'm from Kerala, across the border is Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Only 30 kilometers from where I'm sitting is Tamil Nadu, towards Kanyakumari, which used to be part of Travancore. I cannot read or write Tamil. I cannot understand Tamil. Culture is vastly different. So our constitution has come up with a framework unanimously passed by a very diverse constituent assembly, representing all the most conservative and the most radical from the extreme right to the extreme left, everyone was there, and they unanimously adopted a constitution. Is it not our primary responsibility when it is in crisis to research why it is in crisis and to ensure that it is protected? And to train future lawyers and judges to do nothing but protect the constitution and constitutional principles and not be part of a dangerous revolution to overthrow it. And replace it with something else, which was considered and rejected in the Constituent Assembly. Let me conclude with this. We are at 2:23. Let me conclude with this, and then we can have any remarks. To show how urgent this is, on the 12th day of independence, on 27th August 1947, you can look at the Constituent Assembly debates if you wish. Two Dalit members of the Constituent Assembly spoke in the Constituent Assembly. They were close comrades of Baba Sahib Dr. Ambedkar. They were called, their names were Muniswamy, Pillai and Nagappa. Distinguished members of the Constituent Assembly who made important contributions to the Constitution. But they spoke that day. It was a time when everyone was celebrating that the British had left only 12 days ago, on the 15th, this was the 27th. But this is what they said. They said addressing the President of the House, said, "Sir, let me actually read it. Let me read it to you because I shouldn't paraphrase it. It will only take a couple of minutes. I'll just read. Mr. V.I. Muniswamy Pillai said, "Sir, there is fear in the minds of some of my friends, especially the scheduled castes. Not happiness but fear. Why? That the Hindus are getting into power. And that Hindu Raj is coming into force. And that they may introduce the Varnashrama that was obtaining years back again to harass the Harijans." Sri Nagappa followed Sri Muniswamy Pillai. What was being discussed was the minorities report presented by Sardar Patel to the Constituent Assembly. That was what was being discussed that day. Sri Nagappa, both from what then was called Madras, Nagappa said, I would suggest that it would have been better if it had been provided in the report, namely the Minorities Committee report itself, that a particular community will have its share according to its population. I do not want to rob Peter to pay Paul. It is very bad policy, but I want my due share. Although I am innocent, I am ignorant, I am dumb, yet I want you to recognize my claim. Do not take advantage of my being dumb. Do not take advantage of my being innocent. I only want my due share and I do not want anything more. I do not want, like others, weightage or a separate state. No one has a better claim than us for a separate state. We are the aboriginals of this country. So the fear that India will be ruled by an oligarchy was expressed by Dr. Ambedkar in the number of times, starting from the first roundtable conference. That was being expressed here. That we all want a due share. We want a pluralistic, democratic society where every person feels we fought for Swaraj, not for Savarna Raj. For everyone, including the Swaraj. Everyone should have their due share. But everyone must have a share in ruling the country, their voice in ruling the country. That's a democratic country. Democracy means demos means common people and kratos means power. So democracy does not mean merely electing every 5 years. It means a system where power is in the hands of common people, for better or for worse. So that's the ethos ethos is the moral characteristic of an institution is called ethos. That's the ethos of the republic, the ethos of the constitution, democracy. So I think what is missing in this period of great crisis for our country, for our constitution, is that the legal discipline and the legal profession, from judges to law students and law teachers and lawyers, must stand firmly as best as they see it independently. As they must make an independent judgment, but they must be truly committed to preserving and protecting our federal, pluralistic, democratic constitution, because that's the only way for us to stay together and strengthen our country and make it a truly great country that will be admired all over the world for holding all these fantastically large and diverse and complex populations together, living happily and at peace with each other and not threatening each other. So I would add to your list, my list, that what is missing is research that is now necessary to understand what is going on in terms of the attack on our constitution, and research to ensure that we protect and preserve the constitution and its principles and values as researched in the Constitutional Assembly. It's 3:28, so let me stop here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. So I invite questions from all participants, please. Sir, a question deeply troubles me that the way law has been conceived by lawyers in a modern period and its logic always serve the purpose of profession. And if profession cannot open up for community services, as you rightly pointed out, that research methods should be feminized in a way, it is very much masculine, it's very much observational, it's very much correctional, but it is not appealing a healing approach, it is not appealing to compassionate approach. And the constitutional vision which is there to aspire within us the compassion, because constitution has a language of compassion, and that language of compassion has been turned into management of power. Management of power in the sense that it is all about fights between legislatures and judiciary, and common people are just looking like spectators. So in that sense, how to feminize research method is the biggest challenge.
See, I think just as we are in the 8th decade of our independence. It was in the 8th decade of the independence of the United States that they had their Civil War, in 1861 to 1865. We are in that period, right? Where after 8 decades of a little bit of democracy, there was a backlash from the dominant white population against increasing freedom. And Lincoln said that when a white man rules himself, it is democracy. When a white man rules a black man, it is despotism, he said. And he said no one should rule another person. Everyone should have Swaraj. He didn't use the word Swaraj, but they should rule themselves. So at that point of time, the big issue for the United States was a narrow issue. How should power be distributed in this country? Should it be held by a few dominant white plantation owners who will operate the country to perpetuate slavery because it brings them money? They are growing cotton, they need slaves to produce cotton, so they will have slaves. Or we let the slaves decide what kind of country this should be. And they made the latter choice, and then they had a civil war, 2% of the people died, slavery was abolished, and today it is the only superpower in the world. So at this point of time, the narrow question to which we have to search for answers as lawyers is to ensure that power is distributed democratically in this country. There is no oligarchy. We don't want to replace one oligarchy 4 communities run this country. We don't want them to be replaced by another 4 communities. No. We want power to be democratized, shared. But we are not even agreeing to have a caste census, so-called caste census. We are not even, although we are measuring the population of all castes. If the idea that caste census will start to measure the population of castes for the first time is wrong. You look at every National Sample Survey Organization report. You look at so many sample surveys, you will find everywhere all caste populations are OBC totally, and every caste population is estimated, except it is done through sample surveys. So the demand for caste survey simply is measure the population of all the social groups accurately using 100% head count, as you do for counting religions, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. You are not counting religions through sample survey, you are counting that through caste census, but you are counting, basically you do not want to count accurately the population of the dominant communities. That's the main objection. Because it's very small. So you can pump it up and say that 20%, 25%, 30%, but you don't want that stuff to come out. And you say if that comes out with the, caste division in the country. But if you want to democratize the distribution of power, it has to be done in many ways. It has to be done gender-wise, women must share in power. All excluded communities must be brought into power sharing. So we men have to step back. Communities that are powerful have to step back and limit ourselves to our due share, and those who do not have power, so that no one is really a minority anymore. Actually, interesting thing is, we read the letter of Sardar Patel in 1947 submitting the minority report to the Constituent Assembly, which was what was discussed on 27th August. In the minorities are included not only religious minorities, but that is where he proposes that there must be he uses the word backward classes, that there must be a commission to inquire into the condition of socially and educationally backward classes. Scheduled castes and scheduled tribes are also there. So minorities includes not only religious minorities and linguistic minorities, but socially and educationally backward classes, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes are all minorities in the sense they are excluded from power. Women are excluded from power. So we want to ensure that any group, as a group that is excluded, is included. This Hannah Arendt, the famous intellectual in Europe, she said that the coin of oppression must be the coin of resistance. If you discriminate against me as a Jew, I will react as a Jew. If you discriminate against me as a woman, I will react as a woman. So it's up to you to decide. If you don't discriminate against me, my identity is not relevant. We are just human beings. Right? So we want to avoid this whole thing of minority, majority and all these things by making sure we come in. This is Ambedkar's vision from the Constituent Assembly. So my point is, we have to decide what is most important in the survival of our country. If I'm dying of cancer and you treat my, my cataract, I will die of cancer. Cataract is important, but first I have to treat the cancer to live. No? So I would say that what is missing is a focus on the crisis of the moment. That was what was missing 50 years ago when I was a student. There was no research on why is there an emergency, why are people being arrested indiscriminately, why are our freedoms being taken away, why is my classmate who did no violence, why is he put in jail? What is going on in this country? So we failed to react at that time when emergency was declared and our freedoms were taken away. That was an assault on the Constitution in many ways, although no illegality was done formally, as far as we know, but it was certainly an assault on the ethos of the Constitution. Right now also we have now the new criminal laws being enacted with virtually no discussion or debate. The most important piece of legislation that affects common people in this country, the criminal law of the country, that is what is enforced by all courts at the lowest level. There is no discussion or debate on it. When UNPA was brought in by the Congress in 1967, there was no debate, I'm told. Tata, Porta, all of this was brought in without any debate or attention. And it had horrific consequences. Terrorism has not ended, violence has not ended, lot of innocent people have been harassed and oppressed, especially weaker sections, minorities, women. So we have to stand against, against stereotyping. We must stand particularly against Islamophobia. We have to strongly, as a legal community, we must stand against Islamophobia. We cannot ignore it. We have to learn to respect each other, and value each other. And of course, anyone, regardless of religion, who does something wrong, like these guys who jumped into parliament, that was wrong. We don't care what their religion or their caste is. But they're young people, we must treat them, as you said, with compassion and understanding. So we have to see why our legal system is not addressing the most current constitutional and legal crisis of the moment. It's like an ambulance that comes 10 years after a person dies, with that sirens and all that. Oh, what, you called for someone here 10 years ago, we now come. Patient is dead. Operation successful, patient dead. So, we have to be responsive. Research that is responsive to the current huge crisis facing our country. This is my main and humble submission to you. And I must say, I don't blame any party, any flag, because all this started actually a long time ago. It didn't start just a few years ago. It started basically with the emergency in 91, and it's a long, slow growing pathology that is now really affecting the Constitution. But it's our responsibility to protect the Constitution.
Thank you, sir. Any other question, please, participants?
So, most humbly, I absolutely understood the point where you are focusing on the ethos of the Constitution.
Yes.
My question is emerging from a sort of limitation. Okay, limitation in the sense, I even wrote it that one of the gaps that you identified is the mismatch between the national crisis and the national quote unquote legal curriculum.
Yes.
Okay. So
and research agenda.
Research agenda. Now, it is very much discernible that for classes like legal philosophy, jurisprudence, constitutional law, administrative law, and legal methods, these issues can be very easily put before the students. Okay. Can you suggest, or would you make a comment on how some of the teachers like us who teach purely technically commercial laws,
right,
like law related to insolvency, law related to intellectual property rights,
right,
where these discussions cannot be absolutely put into perspective, but because of the national legal curriculum we have to deal with it, with all due respect to all the agencies which are developing it. So I hope you're getting my point. How do we bring these sorts of discussions into those classes without actually losing the track and essence of the technicalities of those subjects? So, if any comments.
It's a very, very good question, and they're all interrelated. So take company law, right? Company law is actually the modern company law is a way of democratizing the economic system by creating shareholders and shareholder rights and read it along with competition law. And so we always look at competition law, corporate law, take insolvency law. Insolvency law must distinguish between those who cannot pay and those who will not pay. Those who will not pay should be sent to a civil suit, but they can pay. But those who cannot pay must be treated differently and must be given a chance to put their assets together. Usually those who cannot pay are weaker groups, weaker sections and weaker individuals. Right? So take intellectual property law. Right? How do you protect the indigenous knowledge in intellectual property law? How do you are we doing? How do you ensure there's compulsory licensing to ensure that useful knowledge is actually used, right? Even if it is patented and protected. So how do you ensure that the public interest is protected? The whole purpose of all economic law is to protect the public interest. And in a country where there's vast inequality and vast diversity, it always means protecting the last person, This is where, unfortunately, around 1991, a very important conceptual change took place in our country. Until then, we thought that the development of the country equals to the improvement of the condition of the last person. Wipe every tear from every eye, as Nehru said, describing Gandhi. Gandhi didn't say it, but Nehru said, describing Gandhi, that he wanted every tear wiped from every eye. So until every tear is wiped from every eye, this country is not progressive. But from 1991, successive governments have disconnected the idea of national development from the well-being of poor people. So when you see spectacle, like Vande Bharat, or for many years GDP growth, Manmohan Singh and Chidambaram, and you see big roads and highways and new Taj Mahals, and so on and so forth. Then you say, or we are G20, we are #1, we are Vishwa Guru. Then everyone thinks this country is developing and progressing. We must support that. We must sacrifice for that. I have no job, my children have no job, I have no food. Right? But I have to sacrifice. After all, the Jawans are sacrificing their lives for this country, and we are measuring the country's progress by a new set of indicators unrelated to the well-being of the last person. And so the economic policies and economic laws are also being administered now to support this development of the country, not the well-being of the people or alleviation of their poverty. In fact, during the UPA regime, they actually abandoned the word poverty altogether. And they started using, targeted households and AAY and PPH, they stopped saying poverty because they said there's no more poor because if you remove the word poverty, instead of it's hard to remove poverty, so we remove the word poverty. Right? So today you are teaching these technical subjects from a constitutional perspective because the constitutional connect between national development and the well-being of the common people has been removed unconstitutionally. And therefore our research must be on how to reconnect this. And say, you may say whatever you want politically, but legally, it is the Constitution wants the last person. Look at the provision that in Part 4 saying that the material resources of the community shall be so distributed as to best serve the common good. Why are we not enforcing that? So we should teach. You see, you are future Chief Justice of India sitting in your room. And if I am speaking like this, it's because I have teachers who infuse these ideas in my head. And today, if you do that for your teachers, they will come up with a passionate. They will fall in love with this constitution, which is actually a dream to build a wonderful society. So I think the difficulty in teaching technical subjects comes from this disconnect of economic policy from the constitutional vision. That itself is a good research topic.
Who's next? Anyone? Yes, please go ahead.
It's more of a remark than a question. Thank you so much, sir, for such truth bombs. Sometimes we do not realize it, but it's there within us, but we need someone else to tell it. So and that's the same thing I keep telling in my circle, to my colleagues, that these are a few crucial questions. Okay, so there are some statutory questions which we need to address in class, but there are also contemporary questions which are very, very critical, and it is us who's going to start the discourse on it. We legal scholars are responsible for it. It's not a choice, it's a responsibility, you see. So that's one thing. And some of them respond to that idea. Some of them respond as that, but you can't be political in a class, or you cannot be political in your research. Or I mean, I understand the limitation, but my point is that you cannot separate law from politics. It is so complexly intertwined that you cannot separate the two, and you have to address the current situation, the past, and what we are looking forward to. All these three things go hand in hand. So that is my response to them. Now, with that background, coming to the question, with that as a background, as a base, how do we deal with academic censorship, sir? I know that you must have read a lot of news articles going what happened in certain private institutions recently, and the professors there. So, what is your how will you address it? I know the answer is within me, but I want to know it from you.
No, I thank you for the very insightful and wonderful comments. But I think first of all, the Constitution is a political document. It is a political document, and it was adopted by a political institute, and it is a political document. So what we stay away from as teachers is partisanship. We do not support one party or another. We criticize, as I have done, all parties equally, left, right, center, whoever, because our concern only is to protect the Constitution, which is a political document and a political vision. And we'll have to do, and we can do so without criticizing any political party. We focus on decide on actions. We can criticize judgments. I can say 370 was wrong, but I would never think, let alone say, that the judges were influenced by wrong motives or had some wrong things in my mind. No, it's not. I don't think so. I know the judges are all wonderful people. They just have a difference of opinion. They have a different view on the subject. So, but they will accept and respect our right to comment on their interpretation of the law. So we understand the Constitution is a political question. Democracy is a political choice. Okay? And freedom is a political choice. Equality is a political choice. Secularism is a political choice. Women's equality is a political choice. Gender equality is a political choice. Right? So actually, this is a long topic. But the big question that we have, which was actually addressed squarely by only one philosopher to my knowledge, and to very positive impacts. Professor Tilakanand is familiar with him. I am very closely familiar with him. Is Narayana Guru of Kerala. What Narayana Guru focused on was not what his belief should be or what people should believe or should not believe. He focused on how should I approach the belief of others. He did not preach to anyone what they should believe. But he said, how should I approach the religion of the other? Why? Because he said in 1925 that the big crisis facing India, he said this 1925, is to protect India from conflict in the name of caste and religion. He said this is the epochal challenge for the country, he said. And he came out with a 4 or 5 point framework for that. He said, first of all, he said that you have to respect the beliefs of everyone else. Don't second guess other people's belief. Respect those other people's beliefs, whatever they are. Second point he said is, when you encounter a belief different from yours, learn that belief, study that belief critically. So if I encounter Islam, first of all, I respect Islamic belief or Christian belief or Buddhist belief or Sikh belief or Jain belief. The second thing he said is you must study that belief that is different from yours. In other words, we have to study all religions. So if you are a Muslim, you must study the Hindu belief and the Christian belief and the Sikh belief and so on and so forth. The third point he says is, once you study critically, if you find something good in that, accept it. If you find something you cannot agree, don't accept it. But if that difference of opinion doesn't cause an issue with someone else, ignore it. But you will now understand better. For example, one thing I've learned from Islam which has helped me throughout my life is a small saying of the Prophet: it is better to be alone than to be with bad people. But it is better to be with good people than to be alone. So, I have had tremendous value in this learning from the Prophet, because when I'm with people and I don't feel comfortable, I know it's okay, it's better for me to be alone. But I don't have to be lonely, I can get into the company of good people, right? So I can accept this from the Prophet only if I study Islam. So, and Narayana Guru says there are good and bad things in all religions, no exception. But find the good things, incorporate them. Don't accept the bad things. If it's of no consequence, ignore it. If it is of a consequence, with samabhava, equanimity, sit down and discuss those differences and find a common way forward. If for example, I want to eat some food that is prohibited to the other person in a way that will be offensive to the other person, then find a way to avoid offending the other person. Right? But without interfering with the other person. And so on and so forth. So find a common way of moving forward through samabhava. That's how we've lived all these centuries. In peace in our country. We've lived for centuries. Until a couple of 100 years ago, we lived with incredible peace in this country. Right? The Europeans had a war with each other, white people making wars with each other roughly every 20 years, 25 years. We didn't have that in the subcontinent. Then he says, what you find good, adopt it, put it into your own daily practice, as for example I have done with this saying of the Prophet and other things. And I've learned from Sikhism, as I said, I've learned from all religions, so many good things. Christianity, a lot. Lastly, he says, observe moral conduct. So have compassion, have fraternity, have friendship, have respect in your behavior to all. So Narayana Guru is the only philosopher who focused not on what your belief should be, but how you should approach a belief that is different from yours, another religion. And today there is a war in Gaza because they did not have a Narayana Guru there. The Jews and Christians are killing each other because they don't know how to approach each other's religion. Now what Narayana Guru is expressing is as the gentleman said, in a sense, not Shankaracharya or Nagarjuna, but Narayana Guru taught us what the kind of method that we have used to keep peace in this subcontinent for centuries. This is the approach of our people, not just Narayana Guru's approach. Respect each other, learn from each other. So let's not be xenophobic, let's not be arrogant, that's not the Indian way. That I'm superior to you, we are superior to everybody, that's not our way. That's why we are respected. I've lived outside India for many years and we always are treated with a lot of, we are not never seen as a threat because we know that we are not xenophobic. We are not asserting that we are superior and you're inferior. No, we follow this Narayana Guru kind of approach with everyone. So I think we have a practical way to understand. So what we need to do, madam, is to reduce our constitution. That's an area of research. We need to distill the ethical content of the constitution, the ethos of the constitution, and convey that in constitution to our students, without getting into partisan politics. But if people then object to that and they still censor then we have to go to court. We are lawyers, we can't be helpless, we have to go to court against academic censorship. Because law teachers don't know what to do about academic censorship. It's like doctors saying, I don't know what to do about COVID, go and ask some lawyers, they tell you what to do about COVID. I don't know if I've answered your question, man, but I try to share my experience.
Thank you, sir. Any other question? We have reached our time, sir. If the colleagues permit, I would make one comment.
I'm sorry, I think I've eaten into your tea time.
No, sir. We are very happy that the tea time is gone, or may pass. So the comment is, there is silence, particularly on legal academia and lawyers. There is a disturbing silence about raising these questions through media or through other way of writings. And this silence gives us a larger burden to search our own conscience, unsettle or not unsettle, challenge our own beliefs or values, and then pick up research questions. So that's my point, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And we'll meet you again, sir, online.
Yes, thank you so much. I will see you briefly again tomorrow, I think.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much for this discussion. Very wonderful discussion. Wonderful comments. Thank you so much. You can stand up. I also have to stand